It must be fair, free trade, yes, but free trade is better than tariffs and protectionism. I don't think that this will work.
For decades, the United States, Germany, and Canada stood as pillars of economic cooperation, partners in trade, industry, and prosperity. But that era may be over. With Washington imposing aggressive tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automobiles, Germany is retaliating, and it's not fighting alone. In a stunning turn of events, Berlin and Ottawa have joined forces, setting the stage for an economic war that could reshape the global financial order. The stakes? Soaring prices on consumer goods, devastating job losses, and a major shift in trade power. This isn't just a diplomatic dispute. It's a battle for dominance in a world where economic alliances are crumbling. So, who will break first? And could this mark the beginning of the end for U.S. economic supremacy? Let's break it down. The trade war begins. How did it get here? For decades, Germany and the United States maintained a mutually beneficial economic alliance. As Europe's largest economy, Germany relied on American consumers for exports, while U.S. corporations saw Germany as a gateway to European markets. But the ground began to shift under the Trump administration. Pursuing an America First trade policy,
my foreign policy will always put the interests of the American people and American security above all else. Has to be first. Has to be.
Washington slapped a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum, triggering global market turmoil. While these tariffs were originally aimed at countering China's economic influence, the real victims were America's longtime allies, Germany and Canada. And it didn't stop there. The Trump administration threatened another 25% tariff, this time on German automobiles. The targets? BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen. For Germany, this was no longer just a trade dispute. It was an attack on the core of its economic power. Berlin refused to stand down. In a move that sent shockwaves through Washington, Germany announced counter tariffs on American exports.
To be clear, the European Union will react firmly and immediately against unjust barriers to free and fair trade, including where tariffs are used to challenge legal and non-discriminatory policies. We don't want to go down that road, let me be clear, but we're ready.
Hitting agriculture, whiskey, and high-tech goods. And as tensions escalated, Canada joined the fight. The U.S. just declared war on Germany's most powerful industry. There's one industry that defines Germany's global economic dominance: automobiles. For over a century, German engineering has set the gold standard for quality, precision, and innovation. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen don't just represent Germany's economy. They support millions of jobs, both directly and through vast supply chains across Europe. But with Washington threatening 25% tariffs on German vehicles, the industry is in crisis mode.
Different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way. They don't accept our cars. They don't accept essentially our farm products. They use all sorts of reasons why not. And we accept everything of them, and we have about a $300 billion deficit with the European Union.
Over $100 billion in German car exports are at risk. 800,000 German manufactured vehicles exported to the U.S. each year could become too expensive for American consumers. Mass layoffs could hit German factories in Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, and Saxony. This isn't just about Germany. The U.S. will suffer too. BMW and Mercedes-Benz operate major assembly plants in South Carolina and Alabama, employing tens of thousands of American workers. If German automakers cut production, American jobs will be on the chopping block as well. In an ironic twist, tariffs meant to protect American industry may end up destroying it instead. And just as Berlin prepared to fight back, a new ally stepped forward, one that Washington never expected. Canada joins the fight. The U.S. just made another enemy. If Germany was blindsided by Trump's tariffs, Canada was betrayed. The United States and Canada share one of the largest trade relationships in the world, with over $800 billion in bilateral trade every year. Yet Washington hit Canada's steel and aluminum industries with the same punishing tariffs, sending shockwaves through Ontario and Quebec. For Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, enough was enough.
They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will violate the free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and signed a few years ago.
Instead of standing alone, Germany and Canada began strategizing together, forging an unprecedented economic alliance to counter U.S. trade aggression. A joint retaliation strategy was formed. Instead of one disgruntled trade partner, the U.S. now faced an organized front. New trade agreements between Germany and Canada strengthened their economic ties, sending a clear message. The U.S. will not dictate global trade alone. But there was one problem. Even Germany's closest European allies were caught off guard. The European Union in shock. Germany goes rogue? Germany's direct trade negotiations with Canada sent shockwaves through the European Union. The EU has always operated as a unified bloc, handling trade agreements collectively through Brussels. But Germany, the economic powerhouse of Europe, just broke that rule. France, Italy, and Spain feared Germany was prioritizing its own survival over EU unity. Brussels worried that Germany's move set a dangerous precedent, one that could weaken the entire European Union.
We have all seen how countries are weaponizing their sources of strength against each other, whether natural resources or new technologies or military and economic coercion. We have seen how supply chains and dependencies are used to gain influence or drive wedges between nations and regions.
If other nations followed Germany's example, the EU's trade authority could crumble. Germany defended its decision, arguing that the stakes were too high to wait for slow-moving EU negotiations. But behind closed doors, Germany and Canada were planning something even bigger. The retaliation begins. Germany and Canada strike back. With economic pressure mounting, Germany and Canada launched a direct counterattack. Germany slapped a 25% tariff on American whiskey, agriculture, and industrial goods. Canada targeted U.S. beef, dairy, and automobile parts, crippling American farmers and manufacturers. The impact was immediate. American farmers in the Midwest, already struggling with market instability, saw their exports collapse. Soybeans, corn, and pork prices plummeted. U.S. manufacturers faced higher production costs as Canada disrupted supply chains. Economic chaos spread, and Washington was forced to respond. But just when it seemed like the conflict had peaked, Canada made a move that shocked the world. Canada's boldest move yet, the 100% Tesla tariff. In an unprecedented escalation, Canada announced a 100% tariff on U.S. electric vehicles. The biggest casualty? Tesla. Tesla, which had been expanding aggressively in Canada, saw its vehicle prices double overnight. Tesla stock plummeted as investors panicked. Elon Musk was forced to address the crisis publicly, calling Canada's decision damaging to progress in sustainable transportation. But this was bigger than Tesla. Canada was making a calculated move, boosting its own domestic electric vehicle industry while crippling U.S. exports. Volkswagen and other European automakers were now positioned to dominate the Canadian EV market, and Washington never saw it coming. Trump's biggest dilemma: back down or escalate. Trump now faces a brutal choice: double down on tariffs and risk further economic devastation. Back down and risk looking weak before an election. His administration underestimated how quickly America's closest allies would turn against it. The U.S. is more isolated than ever. China is swooping in to strengthen ties with Germany and Canada. The global economic order is shifting, and the US may no longer be in control. So what happens next? Will the United States crack under the pressure and retreat? Or is this just the beginning of an even bigger global trade war, one that could change the balance of power forever? The world is watching. Who will blink first? Drop a comment below. Who wins this trade war and who loses?